Grooming gangs have been back in the news, in the headlines, since the beginning of the year, with people waking up to what has really been going on for over 40 years in dozens of towns up and down the country. Thousands and thousands of young girls, mostly white girls, being systematically raped multiple times by mostly Pakistani Muslim men. Perpetrating these crimes. And it's great to see many more people talking about this and creating a fuss over it, as there should be, because it's appalling that it's been going on for such a long time and so many people have suffered from it. I'm encouraged that people are talking about it and that they're not shying away quite often, but I'm actually linking it with Islam and the religion which allows Muslims in certain verses in the Quran to take women and regard them as sex slaves. So we've been talking about this, I've been talking about this since 2018 when I first wrote an article called Sacrificing Girls on the Altar of Political Correctness and articulated the Islamic connection and the verses in the Quran that are used by some Muslims to justify this kind of crime. And we helped some victims, one in particular, Sarah, who was a victim for many years and was actually held as a sex slave and endured 3 Sharia marriages and was forced to memorize the Quran. Multiple examples there are of this, but we've been involved in it, we've been highlighting it for some time. So I've got 7 policy recommendations for what the government should do about this. One is have a national proper statutory inquiry. There hasn't been a national proper inquiry. There have been a number of inquiries before, none that's really delved back, right back to 40 years, right up to today, across the entire nation, focused on these Islamic, in particular, grooming gangs, and tackling them and what went wrong and why it went wrong and what can be done to stop it. I think we need to do that and it should be done, and I'm urging the government to do that. Secondly, I think that people who actually did turn a blind eye or didn't prosecute, or even you've got a case of a social worker attending an Islamic marriage of a 15-year-old girl, these people should be held to account. No police officer has actually lost their job over this. No senior person has actually taken the rap for it and actually been held accountable for it so far, even though it's been going on for so long. We need to see prosecutions, people losing their jobs, people resigning, all of that kind of thing needs to happen across the police, across social services, across local councils, even in government perhaps. Right across the side, we need to see that happening. We need a wholesale culture change in the police so that they treat everyone equally according to the law, no matter who they are, what they've done, what their ethnic or religious background is. Underage sex is illegal, full stop. Whether it's perpetrated by whoever, it's illegal and should be prosecuted every single time. And we need to see that happen as well. Thirdly, we need to stop pretending it isn't about Islam, and I'm encouraged that, as I said, people are starting to talk about that. But Islam is a factor in this. The Islamic treatment of women, the way they regard women and so on, enables them and facilitates this. We've seen examples of Sharia marriages. We had a case of somebody who had 3 Sharia marriages, people being forced to learn the Quran, people giving the Islamic names, the rapists praying before they rape the girls. All of this kind of thing is part of what's been going on here. So Islam is involved in it as well, and let's acknowledge that. Fourthly, we've had one case, it wasn't our case, but we've seen one case where one of these victims has sued her perpetrator for damages and was awarded £425,000 by a judge. Why aren't more women doing this? Why isn't this happening? There's been calls for compensation for the victims from the government. I'd like to see the compensation paid by the perpetrators. And let's have these kind of cases, more cases like this being brought. That will act as a major deterrent and give some extra recompense to the victims in terms of all that they've suffered. We should see longer prison sentences for these crimes. We've heard recently that 5 out of 6 of one of the key Rotherham gangs that was prosecuted early on is going to be out of prison in the next, some of them are already out of prison and others are going to be out of prison very soon. And other gang rapists are already out and walking the streets in front of the victims and intimidating them again and triggering them and all of that kind of thing. The prison sentences should be much longer for these kind of crimes. I don't understand why it isn't. We should also deport any foreign nationals that are involved in this. It's shocking that we've tried to deport some of them and failed. It should be a matter of course. If you commit an offence like this, you lose the right to stay in this country. And finally, we've got to, of course, halt the mass immigration that there's been, which is part of the cultural change that has facilitated this and caused this to happen. This rotten doctrine of multiculturalism has got to end, and we need to massively curb our immigration in this country. That's my 7 policy recommendations. I think they'd make a difference. I'd call the government to do all 7 of those things. Thank you.